Hello everyone, welcome to Bajirao IAS Academy, the news analysis. So today we have few important articles from different newspapers. So we try to discuss and analyze them in an exam relevant manner, right? So all these news articles that we are going to discuss are very important and very interesting articles. And along with discussing these important news articles, we also try to solve the prelims practice questions, right? So regularly I have been giving you the current affairs based practice questions for prelims. So we'll try to solve those questions also along with discussing these important news articles, right? So the question that I have given to you yesterday was, which of the following Constitutional Amendment Act limited the total number of Union Council of Ministers, including the Prime Minister, to not to be more than 15% of the total strength of the Lok Sabha? Now, why this question was asked? We all knew that recently the 18th Lok Sabha elections were declared. Now, after declaration of elections, the NDA government was recently the oath-taking ceremony of all the ministers took place, and in fact total 72 ministers, so total 15% of the total strength of the Lok Sabha can actually become the ministers. However, the question is, which Constitutional Amendment Act has set this 15% limit on the total number of ministers with the government? Now we'll go to the explanation part and we'll try to understand this. What exactly is this? Now, as I've already told you, the context is that Prime Minister and other Council of Ministers, so who were recently elected in this 2024 Lok Sabha general elections. So the Union Council of Ministers sworn in along with the Prime Minister Narendra Modi. So this Union Council of Ministers included 7 women, and total number of ministers including Prime Minister Narendra Modi is 72. And there are some constitutional provisions also with respect to the Council of Ministers, and these constitutional provisions are also very, very important from the examination point of view. Now, Article 74 talks about the Council of Ministers. So it says that there is a Council of Ministers with Prime Minister at the head to aid and advise the President, who shall, in the exercise of his functions, act according to the advice tendered by the Council of Ministers. So that is mentioned in Article 74 of the Indian Constitution. Now, in fact, the President cannot do his duties or functions on his own, right? So he cannot act on his discretion. Rather, he need to exercise all his functions based on the advice tendered by the Council of Ministers. That is provided by Article 74 of the Indian Constitution. So apart from that, there is also another article, Article 75, 1A. So this Article 75 1A is talking about that the total number of ministers in the Union government, including the Prime Minister also, and the Council of Ministers should not exceed 15% of the total strength of the members of the House of the People. So that is mentioned in Article 75 1A. However, when we talk about Article 75 1A, it was inserted through the 91st Constitutional Amendment Act. So please remember, it was instituted through the 91st Constitutional Amendment Act of 2003. So this 91st Constitutional Amendment Act of 2003 has mandated that the total number of ministers in the government, both central government and state government, should not increase or should not be more than 15% of the total strength of the House of the People. Now in this case, House of the People is the Lok Sabha, right? Now the total strength of the Lok Sabha is 542. So if we can say that the 15% of the members of the Lok Sabha comes to around 72%. So therefore the correct answer for this question is Constitutional Amendment 91st Constitutional Amendment 2003 set a limit of 15%. Now today also I have given you one very important prelims practice question, and we have already discussed about this in our previous lecture. Now if you are regularly following our lectures, you can answer this question without any doubt. Okay, so the question was, consider the following countries and how many of the above mentioned countries recently joined the BRICS grouping. So because in yesterday's lecture itself I have discussed about this BRICS grouping. So please try to answer this question, which of these countries recently became part of the BRICS grouping, in the comment section, and I'll be giving you the correct answer in tomorrow's class. Now without any delay, let's start our discussion with few important articles, and the first a very important article that we are going to start our discussion is with the Uniform Civil Code. Now this Uniform Civil Code is very important from the examination perspective, examination point of view, both prelims and mains examination, because Uniform Civil Code is mentioned in the Constitution under Article 44 of the Indian Constitution. Okay, so we know that Directive Principles of State Policy Article 44 talks about the implementation of the Uniform Civil Code. Now when we talk about the context of this particular article, is that recently Union Law Minister, so Arjun Ram Meghwal, recently said that the implementation of Uniform Civil Code was part of the present NDA government's agenda. So the law minister has been actually emphasizing that the implementation of Uniform Civil Code is one of the top priorities of the current NDA government. Now we will try to understand what exactly is this Uniform Civil Code before discussing all these pros and cons and why the union government wanted to bring Uniform Civil Code, everything. Now first and foremost, with a brief definition, we try to understand what constitutes Uniform Civil Code. Now when we talk about this Uniform Civil Code or UCC, so it is in a very simple terms is common law or one single law. So that will be applicable for the entire country, irrespective of religion, irrespective of caste, gender. So no such things comes as a roadblock, as a hurdle while implementing the laws. Now in fact this UCC is a one law for the entire country, and it will be applicable for all religious communities in their personal matters. Now personal matters including marriage, divorce, inheritance and adoption. Now if you look at the present implementation of different personal laws, now Muslims have their own personal laws, and on the other hand Hindus, Jains and Buddhists were governed by a different law. Okay, so therefore the Uniform Civil Code actually makes a common single law for the entire country, irrespective of any religion, any caste or any place. Okay, so there will not be any distinction, any discrimination with respect to one single law that is being emphasized in the Uniform Civil Code. So therefore there will not be any deprivation of people based on their personal laws. So as I have already told you that Article 44 of the Indian Constitution, Directive Principles of State Policy, lays down that the state shall endeavour to secure Uniform Civil Code for the citizens throughout the territory of India. So this is what the Article 44 of the Directive Principles of State Policy has mandated to the respective governments. And in fact, as I've already told you, Article 44 is the Directive Principles of State Policy. Now, what is the status of Uniform Civil Code in India? Now, if I can tell you some details, some facts with respect to the implementation of Uniform Civil Code in India, Goa is the only state where Uniform Civil Code is implemented in India. And in fact, recently Uttarakhand state government has also made some efforts to bring in Uniform Civil Code. So however, when we look into the status of Uniform Civil Code in India, so Indian laws do follow a uniform code in most of the civil matters, such as when we are dealing with the Indian Contract Act of 1872, Indian Procedure Code, and Transfer of Property Act of 1882, the Partnership Act of 1932, and Evidence Act of 1872, etc. So in all those cases, we follow a one single or a common law which is applicable for every individual, irrespective of religion. So now we'll understand the background of this Uniform Civil Code. So what was this Uniform Civil Code? When was this idea first mooted? So when we talk about this background of Uniform Civil Code, it dates back to the colonial India. So that essentially it dates back to the British government. So in fact, the British government submitted its report in 1835, and this particular report has emphasized on the uniformity in the codification of Indian law. So Indian law, which actually encompasses a wide variety of matters, including crimes, evidences, contracts. So therefore, the 1835 report has emphasized on a common law and codification of all the law related matters, specifically recommending that the personal laws of Hindus and Muslims should be kept outside such codification. Now this is where it is not emphasizing on the Uniform Civil Code. Okay, so now because it is a creation of a single law, codification of all the laws, or a common law which is applicable for a people who are belonging to every religion. Okay, so however, the 1835 report has emphasized on codification of different matters, but along with the codification of different matters, in this consolidation and codification of the Indian law, it has recommended that the personal laws of Hindus and Muslims should be kept outside of such codification. And based on these recommendations during the colonial times, a bill was then adopted in 1956. So that was known as Hindu Succession Act. Right? So this Hindu Succession Act to amend and codify the law relating to the interests or interstate or unwilled succession among Hindus, Buddhists, Jains and Sikh religions. So Hindu Succession Act essentially deals with the personal laws of Hindus, Buddhists, Jains and Sikhs. Now, in fact, there are two interesting judgments which are concerning with respect to the Uniform Civil Code. Now, first judgment is with respect to the Shah Bano case of 1985. So it is very well known with respect to the Uniform Civil Code, right? So it is with respect to the divorce among the Muslim women. And second very important judgment is Sarla Mudgul case of 1995. So this Sarla Mudgul case of 1995 deals with the issue of bigamy and conflict between the personal laws existing on matters of marriage. So these are two important cases which have been dealing with the Uniform Civil Code. So however, there are a lot of implications of implementing the Uniform Civil Code on personal laws. Right? So what are those implications? We try to understand all those implications. First and foremost, so when we implement the Uniform Civil Code, it is largely believed that it would protect the vulnerable sections of the society. For example, whenever there is a personal law, it is believed that the personal law of Muslims discriminates women. So recent example was being the triple talaq. Right? So therefore, whenever we implement the Uniform Civil Code across the country, it will protect the vulnerable sections of the society in a much more effective manner. Right? So therefore, this Uniform Civil Code aims to protect the vulnerable sections of the society. And in fact, this ideal was envisaged by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. Now, these vulnerable sections including women and the religious minorities. So when we have a common single law, without a doubt, it will promote the nationalistic fervor throughout the unity or through unity across the country. And apart from that, when we have one single law, it will lead to the more simplification of laws. Now, whenever we have multiple laws and even we do not have a proper clarity on the personal laws of different religions, we can say that the existing laws are very complex, right? So therefore, a Uniform Civil Code actually makes an attempt to simplification or simplify the laws. So therefore, it is believed that the Uniform Civil Code will simplify the complex laws So the complex laws which related to the marriage ceremonies, inheritance, succession, adoptions. So therefore making them one for all. So there will be one single law for all these matters: ceremonies, inheritance, succession, adoption, marriage, everything is guided under one single law. But as of now, these different laws are they are different for people belonging to different religions. Okay, so therefore the same law will then be applicable to all citizens irrespective of their faith, irrespective of their religion. One single common law will be applicable to all citizens. And after that, this particular law will also adhere to the ideal of secularism also, right? So how it adheres to the ideal of secularism? Because what does secularism means? Now secularism essentially means that treatment of all religions equally in the case of India, right? So a positive secularism that we have adopted instead of the Western countries which have adopted the negative secularism. So negative secularism in the sense that the complete separation of state and religion, but on the other hand, the Indian secularism is positive secularism. So positive secularism is treatment of all religions equally. So that is positive secularism that we have adopted. So therefore the uniform civil code will lead to the adherence to the ideal of secularism. So in fact, secularism as an ideal, we all knew that is enshrined in the preamble. And so therefore the secular republic of India requires or needs a common law for all citizens rather than the differentiated rules which are based on the religion or faith of individuals across the country. And apart from that, the uniform civil code is also very, very important to further promote gender justice across the society, because women are the vulnerable section of the society, and there was a discrimination whenever there were personal laws which have been governing marriage, divorce, adoption, everything. So therefore it is believed that when we implement uniform civil code, that would extend greater protection for the women. So thereby we can promote or we can enhance the gender justice in the society. So when we brought in uniform civil code, all personal laws will cease to exist. So there will be no personal laws either for Muslims or for any other religion. And therefore it will do away with the gender discrimination or gender biases that were existing as of now in those personal laws. So these are the basic implications. We can say that all these implications are positive implications on personal laws if we implement the uniform civil code. However, uniform civil code is not free from the challenges. Rather, we can say that it has been facing number of challenges, numerous challenges. The first and foremost, it gives rise to the communal politics. Now, what are these communal politics? The politics which revolves around religion are known as the communal politics. So therefore, when we implement uniform civil code, it is believed that it could give rise to the communal politics across the country, and that is not good for the democracy, because it will lead to the polarization of people on religious lines, essentially to protect their vote banks. And in fact, there is no uniform demand for uniform civil code across the country. And it is also believed that the demand for uniform civil code has been framed in the context of communal politics. So apart from that, a large section of India's population have been seeing this uniform civil code implementation is a majoritarian attempt from the government. This is a belief that a majoritarian effort, a majoritarian exercise from the government under the garb of social reform. This is not exactly the social reform, rather it is an attempt of majoritarianism from the government side. And after that, there is also a constitutional hurdle. So when we plan to implement uniform civil code, so it will also have a constitutional hurdle. Now, what sort of a constitutional hurdle it places is that Article 25 of the Indian Constitution so actually wanted to preserve the freedom to practice and propagate any religion. So right, so when we talk about right to religion, article 25 to article 28 deals with the right to religion, so we all knew about that. So article 25 of the Indian Constitution says that, it seeks to preserve freedom to practice and propagate any religion, and that will gets into conflict with the concept of equality, which is enshrined in article 14 of the Indian Constitution. There may be attempts which challenges the uniform civil code that is being implemented across the country, saying that it is the violation of under article 25 of the Indian Constitution. Now, however, when we talk about the Minerva Mills case judgment, because now in order to give effect to the any provision in the directive principles of state policy, the parliament must amend the fundamental rights. Now, in case if there is a conflict between the fundamental rights and directive principles of state policy, so the Supreme Court time and again has said that the Constitution was founded on it is actually founded on the foundation of the balance between the fundamental rights and directive principles of state policy. Now, in order to give effect to any provision in the directive principles of state policy, the parliament can amend the fundamental rights. So keeping in mind the lot of benefits for the society, we can think about the implementation of uniform civil code. And in fact, the Supreme Court has also time and again asked the center and various state governments to implement uniform civil code across the country. So that will reduce the complexity in the existing laws in India. Okay, so we'll proceed on to the way forward of this uniform civil code. So what should be the way forward with respect to the uniform civil code? And in fact, when we talk about this way forward, the government and society should work together. So there should be a trust that should be built. Okay, so therefore, everyone must be aware about the implications of the uniform civil code, and there should be a consensus. Consensus should be built between different stakeholders across the country. Now, we need to look into the uniform civil code from the perspective of a social reform rather than looking it from the perspective of religious conservatism, because it has a number of positive implications for the society when we talk about protection or safeguarding the interests of the vulnerable sections of the society and ensuring gender justice and further simplification of laws, and even promoting unity across the country. So keeping in mind all these benefits, we must look into the uniform civil code as a social reform rather than looking from the prism of religious conservatism. Okay, so apart from that, the government could bring separate aspects such as marriage, adoption, succession matters, and maintenance of everything into uniform civil code in stages. Right? So why to bring everything under uniform civil code in a one single attempt or one go? Rather, we need to bring all those contentious matters one by one once we started achieving consensus on all these issues. However, when we talk about the uniform civil code and its implementation, the need of the hour is codification of all personal laws. A codification of all personal laws in the sense that there is no clarity over these personal laws. There are number of personal laws which actually deals with the personal matters of different religions or people belonging to different religions. So therefore, there is a need to identify all those laws, and there is a need to compile all those laws at a one single place, and that is known as codification. So therefore, the need of the hour is codification of all of these personal laws, so that the prejudices and stereotypes in every one of them would come into light and can be tested on the anvil of fundamental rights of the Constitution. But essentially, we try to achieve the consensus among the different sections of the society. So the next very important article is with respect to the Indian Institute of Science, Bengaluru, recently developed a method which removed the heavy metal contaminants from the groundwater. So this is also very important from your from the prelims perspective, because we get to know about these heavy metals, different heavy metals, and what are the consequences of consuming such heavy metals through the contaminated or non-potable water. So recently, the Indian Institute of Science researchers have actually developed a novel remediation process. Right, so what exactly is this remediation process? Remediation is a technique through which we can remove the harmful contaminants, pollutants out of a natural resource. So that is remediation technique. We also use the bioremediation technique. Now in the case of the bioremediation technique, we uses the microorganisms to remove pollutants. And apart from bioremediation, there is also phytoremediation. Now phytoremediation is also a technique where plant species are being used to remove the pollutants within the water. So therefore, this is actually a remediation process that was developed by Indian Institute of Science. And this process involves removing heavy metal contaminants such as arsenic from the groundwater. And in fact, the arsenic pollution is a big concern in India. So especially the arsenic contamination of the underground, especially Bihar and Bengal regions. So therefore, this Indian Institute of Science developing such a remediation method to remove those heavy metals from the drinking water is definitely one significant and one innovative method. So there are a number of heavy metals. So those heavy metals including arsenic, cadmium, chromium, copper, nickel, lead and mercury. So all these metals are categorized or classified as heavy metals. And in fact, these heavy metals can actually pollute the environment and mostly the groundwater. We very often hear about the arsenic contamination in the underground. Right. So when we talk about this recent technology or methodology that is being developed by Indian Institute of Science with respect to removing these heavy metals from the water, this is actually a 3-step method. However, this technology or this method was developed, still it is waiting for the patent. Okay, so still it is pending for patent, and it also ensures that the removal of heavy metals are disposed of in an environmentally friendly and sustainable manner. Now for example, imagine that the water is contaminated with the arsenic, and the Indian Institute of Science developed a method to remove these contaminants from the water. So when these arsenic contaminants or heavy metals are removed from the water, so what we should do, how we can dispose of these heavy metals once we are separated them from the water, right? So this Indian Institute of Science has also developed a method to safely dispose of these heavy metals in an environment friendly and sustainable manner. So once these heavy metals are removed, instead of sending these untreated heavy metals into sludge or to landfills, from where they can potentially re-enter the groundwater again. So once we make sure that the heavy metals again entered into the sludge or landfills, there is a probability that they can re-enter into the groundwater. So when we talk about because in order to avoid this, the Indian Institute of Science has developed a method which safely and sustainably removes and also manages or disposes this arsenic. Okay, so apart from that, there are as of now 113 districts in 21 states in India. Okay, so these 113 districts in 21 states in India have this arsenic levels above 0.01 milligram per liter. Okay, so however, there were 223 districts in 23 states, so they have a fluoride levels as high as 1.5 mg per liter. So these two are beyond the permissible levels which were set by the Bureau of Indian Standards and even the World Health Organizations also. So therefore, when Indian Institute of Science developed such a method to remove these heavy metals from the water, from the groundwater, it would reduce the harmful effects of these heavy metals on the human health. However, these contaminants can significantly affect the human and animal health and necessitating their efficient removal and safe disposal. So apart from that, the researchers of Indian Institute of Science, Bengaluru, have been working with the INREM Foundation. So this is an NGO, okay, a non-governmental organization. And Earthwatch, this is also another NGO. So whatever technologies that they have developed, so those technologies will be deployed with the help of NGOs in areas where groundwater is contaminated with the heavy metals. For example, there are areas including Bhagalpur in Bihar and Chikballapur in Karnataka where the groundwater is contaminated with the heavy metals. Now, when these technologies are deployed into these areas, so we get to understand the effectiveness of such remediation methods, and if any changes required in these methodologies, accordingly such changes will be made, and we will also demonstrate such remediation methods in a much more effective manner with the help of these non-governmental organizations. However, the heavy metals actually cause a various diseases, a wide variety of diseases. For example, when human beings consume untreated water with heavy metal content, that will lead to the heavy metal poisoning, and that can lead to irreversible symptoms of brain damage, kidney and liver failure. Okay, so there are a wide variety of concerns with respect to the heavy metal contamination of groundwater. And apart from that, there will be a need for multiple blood and urine tests to make sure that the toxic metals are leaving your body, and it is very expensive, and this would further increases the out-of-pocket expenditure from the poor people. So therefore, the heavy metal removal technology developed by the Indian Institute of Science is an important breakthrough to remove harmful heavy metals from the water. So the next very important article is with respect to India's looming financial crisis. So the author has been arguing that India has been facing a financial crisis. Despite there were forecasts of India's positive growth rate, positive GDP growth rate and strong financials, but the author has been arguing that there is a looming financial crisis in India. We will understand why the author has been saying that there will be a looming financial crisis in India. Now, the context is that now if you look at India, there is a rapid credit growth in India. Okay, so this rapid credit growth in India has actually raised certain concerns about the potential financial crisis in the future. Now, what sort of a credit growth and how it will lead to the financial crisis in the future, we will understand very shortly. So this particular situation, that is the potential financial crisis in future, is further exacerbated by the unregulated financial sector. Now, if you look at the financial sector, there are banks, non-banking finance companies and other financial institutions. But in recent times, so if you look at the financial sector, there are a number of unregulated financial players. They are entering into the economy. So when these unsustainable financial players are entering into the sector, the financial sector, it will lead to the unsustainable household debt. Right. So now every unregulated financial company is offering loans to the households. Okay. So and they are also charging much higher interest rates. So therefore there is an increased or piling up of debt. Now, even if you look at the financial sector, now as of now there are a number of loan apps. And these loan apps have been giving numerous loans to the consumers, households. And apart from that, the households are taking loans in their credit cards also, in their debit cards also. So there is a chance that it will lead to the financial crisis in future. Okay, so this will have a dangerous implications for the economic prosperity. So that is being fueled by the credit expansion. Now we'll understand what is this looming financial crisis. So how India will face such a looming financial crisis, we will try to understand very briefly. Now the author has been saying that India has been experiencing the credit boom. However, this particular credit boom is driven by the policymakers who are promoting the narrative of financial innovation and inclusion. So because of this financial innovations and inclusions, there were number of loan apps and credit cards, debit cards, and the households have been taking loans, okay, so indiscriminately, so through the digital infrastructure that was created. So this particular hype that was created by the government has led to a poorly regulated financial sector and increasing consumer debt also. Now, for example, imagine that you require, individual A require money. Now he can also approach bank B, but instead of approaching bank B, because it is very often a cumbersome process, person A has a numerous options, a wide variety of options in the financial sector, like the loan apps. He can take loan from credit card, debit card, everything. So therefore there is an increased consumer debt because of poorly regulated financial sector. And apart from that, now if you look at the analysis which is being provided by both international and domestic analysts, so they have also raised the India's financial sector growth. So how they have raised India's financial sector growth? So they have cited the robust bank lending and low performing assets compared to last 2 years. The NPA situation of Indian banks is better now. And at the same time, India has also been experiencing the robust lending. So lending is very, very important, because with lending, so there will be a greater investment, and investment would result in good productivity, employment generation, exports, increased demand in the economy, right? So therefore there is a robust lending, and at the same time the non-performing asset are also declined with the Indian banking. So all these factors have made the domestic and international analysts to predict that India would experience good growth rate. So for instance, the International Monetary Fund and the NCAER so highlighted that a 20% increase in bank lending in recent reviews. So however, the prosperity in India is very often debt fueled prosperity, in the sense that people have been taking debt, the households have been taking debt from multiple sources or multiple financial platforms, and it increasing the debt on those people. Rather, it is not increasing the prosperity of the people, rather it has been increasing the debt of the people, because there is a surge in the lending activities of different loan apps and any other financial institutions, because it is poorly regulated. So therefore there is a surge in lending, particularly for personal loans. Now everyone taking personal loans from different platforms, and it will lead to the masking of several issues. For example, job deficits, human capital deficiencies. Now imagine that a person A is unemployed. But even though the person A is unemployed, due to huge competition in the financial sector, there are number of platforms who are ready to give loans to person A on unsustainable terms. Okay, so therefore it will lead to the masking of job deficit, and it even leads to the masking of human capital deficiencies. And in fact, the lending slows down. Whenever the lending slows down, the financial sector's apparent health is at risk, potentially leading to the economic crunch. And after that, the household debt has been significantly increasing, and that has been creating further economic risks in our country. So because there is a significant expansion in the household lending. So, the household lending is actually growing at 25 to 30% annually. And in fact, the household lending of these loans from multiple financial institutions is considered as a bad boom, because the prosperity is fueled by debt taken by these households. So therefore, it will drives up the domestic prices without enhancing the productive capacity, because they are taking loans, and when they have the loans, and they will have more disposable income in their hands, and that will increases the demand. But it increases the demand and increases the prices of goods, but it has not been increasing the productive capacity in the economy, right? Because the money is not earned by individual through their work, rather it is a debt, and they are just spending the money which they have which they got through a debt. So therefore, it is not increasing the productive capacity of individuals, and because of that reason, it is considered as bad boom. And so when it is not earned through the productive capacity, it makes the economy less competitive over a period of time. Now it is different. For example, there is a company, imagine that there is a company, and person A is working in that particular company, and he earns some salary, and then he spend the salary for economic activity. So that gives a boost to the economy, and our economy will be more competitive. But imagine the same person, he's jobless, he's unemployed, and he's taking loans from the financial platforms and spending that money, and that will not count in improving or enhancing the productivity of the economy. So in fact, that makes the economy less competitive over a period of time. And after that, we need to talk about these unsecured loans. There is a significant increase in the lending to these households. Okay, a significant portion of these household loans, about a quarter, about a 25% of these household loans, most of these loans are unsecured. Now, unsecured loans in the sense that even a credit card debt, a major component of these unsecured debt. Now, people are even taking loans through the debit card or credit card also. Now, in fact, the number of credit cards in India rose from 20 million in 2011 to nearly 100 million in 2024. Okay, so even the credit cards are also given for the low, credit worthy individuals by the banks, and that will lead to the increased spending through these credit cards, increased amount of loans being taken by the people, and they very often having a lot of debt after spending money through these credit cards. And since they are low credit worthy, the banks will also face the NPA problems. However, the household debt constitute 40% of India's total GDP. So that is the kind of a debt the households have as of now. However, the debt service to income ratio is 12%, and it is one of the highest globally. So therefore, this particular condition, whatever we have discussed, it actually reflects the pre-crisis conditions that were experienced by the United States and Spain before 2008 financial crisis. So there is a probability that the productive capacity of Indian economy is not increasing, and it will lead to the financial crisis like conditions that were experienced in 2008. However, so what are the challenges of regulation, and what should be the preventive measures that have to be undertaken? Now, regulation of the financial sector is very important, because financial sector very often lack effective regulations. Now, we need to undertake certain preventive measures also. Now, the financial sector in India is actually characterized by a large number of providers. Okay, so large number of providers in the sense that they're giving loans to different sections of the people across the country. For example, we have banks, non-banking finance companies, and recent times there are number of fintech companies. and many with dubious practices. So they just focused on giving loans. Most of these loans are unsustainable and unsecured loans to the consumers, to the people. So the pressure to generate profits by these companies has led to the increased lending to the households, and they're focusing on giving loans to the households rather than extending their loans to the productive sectors, because now the consumers are offering a higher interest rate. So in order to earn quick profits, now these multiple large number of providers have focused on households and giving them loans, too many loans, and that will lead to the increasing debt burden on the households in the economy. So however, since the economic liberalization of 1991, where we have opened our economy to the private investment, the foreign investment, so the financial scams have been significantly increased. And in fact, the post COVID-19 also, the fintechs and non-banking financial companies are now targeting the households, because households are offering higher interest rates, and because of that reason the fintech companies and non-banking financial companies are now targeting these households and offering them loans, and this will lead to a cycle of debt and addition to credit. For example, when I say an individual who is jobless, and these non-banking financial companies and fintech companies have been offering loans on a higher interest rate, the person would be ready to take such loans. And in order to pay off the debt to these fintech companies and non-banking financial companies, the person, since he is jobless, he would also take loan from another company. So that is how it will lead to the cycle of debt and addiction to credit. So however, the preventive measures to avert this crisis, including that the financial services industry need to be downsized. Okay, so and at the same time, along with the downsizing, we need to regulate the financial services industry also. So we need to focus on productive borrowing needs rather than giving loans to the households without any regulation, without any limits. So for this particular thing, we need to bring in a lot of policy changes, and these policy changes should actually include the weakening of the rupee to boost exports and mitigate the downturn. So these measures have to be taken, and at the same time we must regulate and control the financial or fintech companies which have been extending their loans on unsustainable terms to households. So that will lead to the cycle of debt and addiction to the credit by the individuals, and that is not increasing the productive capacity of the economy, and in fact making our economies uncompetitive. This could lead to the financial crisis. So that is what the author has been saying. So the next very important article is United Nations declared 2025 year as year of quantum science. Okay, so United States recently said that 2025 is designated as International Year of Quantum Science and Technology. Okay, so 2025 year is a International Year of Quantum Science and Technology. So in fact, this is year-long worldwide initiative, and it will be observed through activities at all levels, and this is also aimed at increasing public awareness of the importance of quantum science and the applications that the quantum science actually have. So the proclamation of the International Year of Quantum Science 2025 was actually because of the result of resolution that led by Mexico in May 2023, and which was soon joined by number of other countries also. So by November this year, almost 60 countries had co-sponsored the resolution to declare 2025 as the year of quantum science, and in fact UNESCO General Conference has adopted this particular resolution also. So according to the United Nations, the proclamation has also received the endorsement of the different institutions. For example, International Union for Pure and Applied Physics, the International Union for Pure and Applied Chemistry, the International Union for Crystallography, the International Union for History, Philosophy, Science and Technology. So all these agencies or institutions have given their endorsement for the declaration of, because all these agencies are associated with the quantum technologies, and because of that reason these institutions have also, agencies also endorsed declaration of 2025 as the International Year of Quantum Science. Now, quantum science and technologies have been featuring more often in the public conversations in recent times. And when we talk about the quantum science in Indian perspective, the government of India has already announced the National Quantum Mission in April 2023. Okay, the total estimated amount or the cost of this National Quantum Mission was 6,000 crore rupees, and it will be implemented for 7 years from 2023 to 2031 by the Department of Science and Technology. Okay, so quantum technology have a wide variety of applications in quantum computing, quantum communications, quantum sensing and metrology, quantum materials and devices. So it has a wide variety of applications, and because of that reason, now it is yet to be explored. The full potential of quantum technology is yet to be explored. And because of that reason, the number of countries across the world have started focusing on the quantum technology because of its wide variety of applications. And in fact, the quantum computers will have a transformative effect on electronics, clean energy, drug designing, drug development, given their superior computational and computing abilities. So when we talk about this proclamation of 2025 as International Year of Quantum Technology, so the proclamation is a signal for any individual, a group of people, a school, an institution, a government to use this 2025 year as an opportunity to increase awareness about this quantum science and technology. So this can, any of these agencies can use 2025 or this proclamation to increase awareness about the quantum science and technology. So that is how the interest in the field of quantum science and technology can be significantly enhanced among the general public and the students particularly. Okay, so that is why 2025 was declared as the year of quantum science. So that's all in this lecture, and thank you so much. So please subscribe to our YouTube channel and also hit the like button. Thank you.